I think, or you. My name is Diana Maya. I'm the director of programs at Hope. I oversee all of the leadership staff and oversee obviously the implementation of all of our leadership development programs, of which we have 4 flagship programs and some different training initiatives. And Hope will be growing significantly over the next 3 to 5 years. So it's a really exciting time for the organization. So nice to be here with all of you. Really?
Hi, everyone. My name is Kimberly Salinas. I am the program coordinator here at Hope, so I help support all of our leadership programs. I actually just had my 1-year anniversary Tuesday, I believe, here at Hope, so it's been a wonderful experience. I got to work with Diana and Stephanie, and they're such amazing coworkers, and I'm so excited to be here with you all ladies today and get to know you a little bit better. And yeah, I'll pass it back over to Stephanie.
Thank you, Kim. Well, hello, everyone. Nice to see everyone on this virtual space. My name is Stephanie Ramirez Zarate. I am the Senior Program Manager here at Hope, overseeing the adult components of our leadership programs. I work under the leadership of Diana, who oversees all the leadership programs at Hope, which range from youth, high school, and college. And so the Hope Leadership Institute is one of our Hope signature programs. It was the inception to doing a lot of the leadership work that we do here at Hope. I've been with the organization for almost 3 years. And I love doing this role and getting to work with cohorts on a year-to-year basis. And it's really awesome to see some alumni in the room here. Natalie and Lisana, thanks for joining. So I wanna kick it over back to Diana. She's gonna be sharing a little bit of that history of the Hope Leadership Institute, the why we do what we do, and the significance of this recruitment period that we are in at the moment.
Yeah, happy to do that. Thanks, Steph. So I think to talk about the kind of the start of the Leadership Institute, and how integral it is to the work that Hope does as an organization, I want to first kind of start where we started as an organization, because I think it inspired so much of the Leadership Institute. So Hope started as an organization in 1989, and it was actually a small group. I think it was about 5 women in the LA County area who were starting to build their kind of own power, their own network here in LA County. And they kind of rallied around the first Latina deputy mayor in the city of LA. She was actually appointed by then Mayor Tom Bradley, who was the first African-American mayor in the city of LA. And the purpose of this kind of group that they had formed was really to support her, to support the growth in kind of political power of Latinas. And they, did the same thing a few years later when California had its first Latina senator who is now Supervisor Hilda Solis. And so that's from there, we kind of developed our conferences. So our first conference was in LA. Our second conference was in Sacramento, and it was really much a show of support for then Senator Hilda Solis. And the conversation then turned into, but most of the group actually at the time was still LA County focused. And most of the conversations that were being had, or kind of the demands that were put on the group, were how do you expand the impact that we're doing? How do we serve more Latinas? All Latinas don't live in LA County. How do you empower not just these 2 women or the women who are in LA County, but how do you empower more Latinas everywhere they are in this state? And in order to kind of do it justice, they did a series of focus groups throughout the state of California. And what they found from those focus groups was that Latinas could use a space that was specific to them, right? That understood their culture, that they didn't feel in that space, the traditional leadership spaces that they were in, they felt like they were the person responsible for explaining Latino culture, being the one only Latino leader, and kind of being the banner holder for that. And they really just wanted one space that was safe, where they could just grow on their own, right? Just really kind of have some leaders pour into them. And so it was critical that that the space was created. The focus of the curriculum really came in from that focus group as well, because what they found was that Latinos could really use some help understanding the political process, understanding how government works, how they could be of influence as advocates, or if they should choose to run for office, how they could be of influence should they choose to run for office. And so that's really how the curriculum started developing. The Leadership Institute that we have now is very different from where it started, or how it was originally designed, but a lot of it was designed by an amazing leader within the organization and who continues to kind of give back. Her name is Carrie Lopez. And she had a leadership development background, and she modeled this program similar to others, but with the intention of centering, not defining what Latina is, because you'll find, and I hope it was Natalie and Isana's experience, we never defined what Latina was for you. We kind of just helped you navigate a way for you to define that for yourself. Hope even we have this conversation all the time, and we just had it earlier this week with our director of communications. We've never defined what being Latina is, because that's not our job. Our job is to kind of help you navigate where you get to that definition for yourself. And so that's kind of the nexus for HLI. It's a lot of breaking down processes of government, both at the local, state, at the federal level. There's some internal leadership reflection. And then I think the part that's most rewarding for us as an organization is to really see the fellowship that forms between, the folks in the cohort, and how much of an empowering, we're not supposed to say sisterhood, but that's really what it is, right? It's a network of women who are gonna, pick up the phone when you call, or, if you're in distress, they're gonna be there to support you, or if you have a critical career decision to make, they can be a sounding board. Or if you run for office, right, oftentimes we'll get like I'm running for office, can I get a donation? But these women will help carry you through wherever you go next in life in your career. And I think that's probably the one thing we hear the most about, is the biggest takeaway. But as an organization, obviously developing Latina advocates is critically important, especially where we are as a state and as a country. So I'll leave it there. Stephanie, I hope that was what you were looking for. And I'll turn it back to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Diana. And to that point, we do this work on a year-to-year basis. And just a month ago in September, we graduated the 24th class of the Hope Leadership Institute. It was a group of amazing Latina leaders. 36 women from across the state graduated from this year's class. And as soon as we finish with the class, we begin the recruitment process to onboard our next group of leaders in 2023. And so as part of these cafecitos, for you to learn about the program, for you to get a sense whether this is the right fit for you, we did want to invite some women that just went through the program. They have a very fresh experience and take on the experience. And so I wanted to introduce you all to Lisana. Lisana is the Vice President of Strategy and Advocacy at the Eastside Education Initiative in the Bay Area. Lisana Dominguez was, again, a part of the 2022 cohort, and she is now part of the alumni network. So please help me welcome her. I also do encourage you to begin that networking now, because as you'll see, part of the application process is a lot of that referral process of how well connected or how well do you know the organization. And so Lisana, welcome and thank you so much for joining us today.
So much, Stephanie and Diana and Kim. Thank you so much for having me too. It's great to see the three of you and to be back in these spaces. Hi, everyone. Like Stephanie said, I'm Lisana Dominguez. I'm calling in from East San Jose. I'm born and raised Silicon Valley, and I come from parents that are migrant from Chihuahua. I like to kind of give you a backstory as to why I went into HLI or how HLI really, drew an interest for me. Is I been a part of educational equity for the entire part of my professional journey. But I always felt like I was just stuck. I didn't know how to really do more impact or how to be more impactful with my work. I also was at a place where I was looking for additional leadership development opportunities that were going to enhance my skills to be able to, again, provide more for my community and really be intentionally strategic on how I give back. I think a lot of us as Latinas, we like to work really hard. We like to hustle, but we want to be able to do it the right way. And so I think I was looking for a place to be able to teach me those skills and tools to be smart on how to navigate my own personal experience and skills in my professional journey as I moved forward. And so I was introduced to HLI from a variety of alumni here in the Bay Area who told me that it was amazing. And all they would say to me is, it's incredible, it's amazing, you need to do it. And I'm like, okay, how? And they're like, but we can't tell you because you need to go through that journey yourself. And I was like, okay, well, great, now I have to do it. So I would have to say that it was one of the most profound leadership development opportunities that I've gone through. It is so well organized. It is planned out so that you understand the different layers of our political system. As Diana was mentioning, it really gives you the tools and the foundations to understand how, as a Latino and Latina, and how our community infiltrates both the local, state, and the federal level, and how you, as yourself as an individual, as a Latina, can be influential in those spaces. And so, every session I walked out with, completely mind blown with the new knowledge that I took out of it. So that's, number one. Number two, I think it's just the level of confidence that you walk out after the 9 months. The skills that you learned from each session and the understandings of advocacy and policy and the role that you could play, not only, give you the knowledge that you need and the language that you need to navigate the space, but the confidence to know that you deserve to be in those spaces. And I didn't have spaces like that before. I didn't grow up with people who are in politics. I didn't grow up with people who are civically engaged. And so it was always an unknown to me. And so to be part of a network of women who were purposely trying to make change really helped elevate who and what I am in these spaces and what voice I can provide, and how I bring my community along. And so I think it was just the level of confidence I needed to hear myself and to see in myself, that I think was probably the most, the one thing I didn't think I was going to walk out of. And it was probably the most influential, is to walk out of it going, oh, wow, I do deserve to be that voice at the table. And then last but not least, like Diana mentioned, the hermanas and the relationships that you make with the other women in the room. I don't know about all of you, but I'm not in spaces very often with a lot of Latinas that we could have related conversations about life, about culture, and about professionalism. In some cases, microaggressions, in some cases, the challenges that we face. And so when you are in these spaces and you can relate with each other, that's so empowering and so moving that it allows you that just the energy to move forward. So I would say, as you jump into to determine whether or not this is the next step for you, I would say it is, no matter where you are in your professional journey, because you're going to get out of it what you put into it. And I would say I put in everything to this journey because I was looking for the three things that I got out of it. And as far as the application process goes, give yourself time because it's a very extensive one. And I think it actually helps in determining if this is the place for you too. I would say if you're already on this call, it is the place for you. Just give yourself space to answer the questions that are provided in the application, and be intentional as to who you choose are going to be your references for this as well. I hope that helps.
Thank you so much, Lisanna. I think this is definitely very helpful, just to also hear the side of the participant. So I'm really glad to hear the takeaways that you took from the program. And you didn't mention this, but you did also go through a position change while you were in HLI, and we're also proud of you for that. Well, thank you, Lisanna. I also want to give a shout out to Natalie Gonzalez, who I know is in the room, and also HLI alumna. This kind of takes us to the transition around the program itself, and I wanna position us to learn a little bit more about the expectations of the program, what we are envisioning the new format that we have for 2023 to also look like. So let me go back to my screen sharing here. Thank you for bearing with me. There's Lisanna. Okay. So going back to some of the components that were just shared with from Lisanna, our goal for the Hope Leadership Institute is for our participants to walk out with confidence in knowing how to maneuver their way through our governmental structures, right? So we demystify processes at the local, at the state, and at the national or the federal level. You'll see that in the breakdown of each of our sessions. So that's an objective of the program. We do this through experiential learning. So it's not just textbook, but it's very much exposure to key leaders, exposure to the process itself. Number two, to acquire individual and group competencies to become active and effective advocates on issues impacting Latinas and our community at large. And three is to analyze and implement strategies to affect the development of sound public policies. So one thing that is not in here, but you quickly begin tuning into is understanding policy through the Latina lens. That's something that's very specific to the work that we are doing in each of our sessions. And so I hope that our alumni here, Lisanna and Natalie, can say that at the end of going through the Hope Leadership Institute, seeing policy through that Latina lens is a special skill that they began to look at differently, because that is the thing that Hope prides itself in bringing to the table. How does this impact Latinas at every decision-making table? Again, we meet these objectives through the 5 sessions that we have traditionally put together for the last 25 years now. So I'm not going to go into specific details, but the 5 sessions that we put together, the first one is at the beginning of the year. And so this is why the recruitment in the fall is so crucial, because we begin with a fresh class right at the beginning of the year, usually January or February. Our first session is the Latina civic leadership and understanding the political process. I call this session almost the behind the scenes of what it takes to become an elected leader, what it takes to run a political campaign. And it's really a lot of the political process. This is the only session that I think we get into the weeds of that political process, because from here on out, it's very much about that public service side of things and how to intervene in the process. Session 2 is Latina History Day, and this is also where we begin to touch on local government. Latina History Day is Hope's signature conference. It takes place in downtown LA, and it happens during National Women's Month. And it is a signature event that recognizes the contributions that Latinas have contributed to the state of California and beyond, because we are trying to make this a national day. And so these two sessions go hand in hand, and we do this local government through the case study of the city of Los Angeles, but it's of course applicable to everyone else that's tuning from different parts of the state. Latina Action Day is our third session. And this is also, it takes place hand in hand with our policy conference, which is in Sacramento. And this is where we will be touching on the state level advocacy and legislative process. Session 4 is a session that takes place in the Central Valley. This one is a little bit of everything that we've learned up to this point, but also a big component of this is legacy. This is a session that we take a look at our own personal strengths as a leader. And session 5, we wrap up with federal policy and the legislative process. I'll touch into this shortly because 2023 is going to look a little bit differently because we're providing more options, but this is the traditional template that HLI follows, and whether you are in what I'll go into the traditional or the hybrid model next year, you will get access to the same components. And so I'm already here. Next year is the 25th anniversary of the Hope Leadership Institute. And so we are expanding access, but we've also tested a model during the thick of the pandemic that worked, right? And that's doing sessions virtually. During 2020 and 2021, Hope didn't stop training. We transitioned everything to a virtual setting, which worked really well. And so next year we are gonna have 2 cohorts, our traditional one that you'll see on the left with the dates that you also see a link dropped in the chat shortly. They're on the website. And these are also dates you'll know before applying, and the hybrid cohort dates. And so both sessions will have 5 sessions in each. The expectations and participation just look a little bit differently. And so in our traditional cohort, we begin in January and finish in September in Washington, DC. That's where the federal component comes in. Our traditional one is the expectation to be virtually for 3 of the sessions and in person for 2 of them. We do not end in Washington, DC for the hybrid cohort. The commitment for these programs is the same. For full participation, sessions look like 2 to 3 days, the virtual one as well. Our in-person trainings are all day. So when you go and you take the time out of your work and family and commitments, you're really with this group of leaders for an entire day. So a lot of our trainings go from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. They're very intensive, if you will. So the hybrid ones are, we're not gonna keep you on the screen all day, but do expect a full day from 8 to 5 with breaks in between. This is all in order for you to give you the same access that traditionally our in-person cohorts would have. But again, the curriculum and the trainings and the objectives are the same for both. And for our hybrid participants, you have the option, of course, of participating in Latina History Day on your own if you want to be a part of it, right? Because your cohort will not be, the days will not correlate at the same time. And so these are the options that we're providing for 2023. And we understand that as working professionals, the in-person component has often been an obstacle, right? Time commitments at home. And so we do hope that this bridges a little bit of a gap in being able to participate in the program. So the link for these dates has been dropped, and you can also find it in our website. I'll pause there. Is there anything you want to add to this before I go into more of the commitment piece of the program?
No, except to say the hybrid cohort, they're full day training sessions, but we do adapt the day so that there's plenty of breaks. I know you can get, really fatigued from just staring at the screen. But there are, in addition to the 2 in-person sessions, there will also be additional opportunities for you to engage with the larger Hope Leadership Institute kind of alumni network. And I think as my team and the alumni on the call have heard me say, like, this program is just the beginning of your relationship with Hope. There's so much more to come after, and so you'll continue to kind of build those relationships even after the program is completed.
Thank you. So want to get to speak a little bit about commitment as a relationship that goes both ways, right? The commitment that Hope has to our cohort participants, as well as the commitment that you as a participant have to not just the organization, but to your fellow leaders, right? So our 3 commitments to you is 1, to provide you those personal skill development and experiential learning opportunities. In each session, we will equip the agenda so that you gain these skills and you learn through the process. But going back to a point that Lisana made, I think everyone gets what they put in, right? We will provide you those moments of learning, but a lot of times it's also how you come to these sessions, how you prepare for these sessions that you can get the most out of it, right? Or how you use what you've learned and apply it to your day-to-day job. Number 2, joining a statewide network of Latina leaders. This is, of course, the alumni network of over 600 leaders this coming year. And so in a lot of the events that you'll see and a lot of the sessions, we do tap on the talent of the leadership that comes out of these groups. And so not only will we provide you exposure, but you also have the opportunity to build connections within the network, not just from your class, but again, from previous classes. And increase your knowledge of issues that impact California Latinas. This you will see as a part of your questions of, sharing from your perspective, what is one of the issues or what are some of the issues that impact Latinas in California. We're not looking for one specific answer because everyone's experience living in the state and as a Latina is different, right? And so it's really increasing those points of use and different perspectives for you to shape your understanding of the world and experiences of Latinas. The commitment that we expect from participants is participation, 100% participation. So all 5 of the trainings arriving on time and in the entirety of the sessions. We do a lot of our work is around policy and advocacy, right? And so Hope does have pillars around our advocacy, and our priorities are around health, education, and economic empowerment. Because we believe that these policy issues not just have a great impact on Latinos and Latinas, but all communities in California, right? And so how do we contribute to this agenda is through participation in Latina Action Day, which is that policy conference that I mentioned. HLI leaders will be spearheading a lot of the educational meetings that we have with elected leaders based on whatever bill or whatever policy we're advocating on that calendar year. So that looks different every year, but you can expect that the advocacy will be in these areas. As an HLI participant, we do bring a philanthropic piece to this, and it's that giving back. And so you'll see that there is no specific cost for the program. This is very unique from other leadership programs if you participated in any of these before. We ask for a contribution in the form of a donation of $540, which is what we call the Beacon of Hope level. This donation does not go to your class, but rather to advance next year's class. So Natalie and Lisana's class, everyone committed at that level, and this goes into the class of 2023. So it's that continuation of giving back for the advancement of leadership of other Latinas. And then the financial responsibility for transportation and hotel, that is, you'll see in the MOU, there's specific sessions. Hope will cover some in some sessions, but not all of them. And so it's making sure that your transportation and your lodging is a responsibility for the sessions that you are responsible for. One thing that is not here, but I'd like to mention is once you submit your application, there is a memo of understanding, an MOU, and it's a twofold. It's one MOU signed by your employer, acknowledging the dates that you're going to be out of work, investing in your professional development. We really want to see this as a commitment, not just from you, but from your team, that they're supporting you in this time off and your investment as a leader. And then a personal MOU signed agreeing your participation and these key items that are part of the program. And so once we receive that MOU, for those that are accepted into the program, that confirms your participation. I'll pause again here. Kim, Diana, if there's anything else you want to add to this piece on commitments.
I just want to reiterate that, I think you mentioned this, Stephanie, we don't want financial reasons to be a barrier for your participation in the program. So for the, for instance, for the Beacon of Hope donation that we're asking for, you can start your donation. We're going to ask that you start your donation in January, but you have until September, until the last session to complete it. There are some travel scholarships available. We'll work with you if you kind of give us some time, give us some heads ups in your application that you might need financial support. Again, we don't want that to be a barrier for participation. Obviously, our resources are also limited, but that's why we've offered, a couple of different options for next year, and we try to work with the participants as best as we can, because we do want the program to be accessible, as accessible as possible.
Thank you, Di. All right. Again, there will be time for Q&A, but definitely start keeping your questions in mind for when we get to this on any of these components and logistics of the program. The application, the deadline is November 13th. A lot of you have already started the application. It is an extensive application, so give yourself time to complete it. You have the option of course, starting it and logging back in to complete it. I'll speak a little bit to what we're looking for in the applications. Something that we value is knowledge and understanding of the organization, of Hope as an organization. So having some familiarity of the different events that we put on, having attended one of our conference. There will be a place for you to mention how many events you've attended, and that is definitely looked in a positive light from the reviewing committee. The applications are reviewed not just by the Hope team, but from an alumni committee that reviews these applications. They don't have the final decision, the Hope team does, and our executive director. But there is a very extensive process that goes into the reviewing of these applications, as it is a very competitive process. And so that's one thing that I always like to signal. If you've been to any events, there's still time to attend an event to kind of get familiar with HOPE and understand what we're all about. That will go a long way. Kim is also going to do me the favor of dropping in the links for our upcoming Latina Empowerment Days. These are almost mini conferences, if you will, at a regional level. And so tomorrow we have one in Riverside. That one is sold out, but maybe there's some folks here in the room that are already attending, which is great. If you're attending and you're applying, definitely put it in. But we have another one coming up in San Bernardino and in Downey in the coming weeks. So these are still opportunities for you to engage with HOPE. And also tap alumni. I mean, a conversation with alumni on the process, on their experience, I think also goes a long way, because there's a place for you to put either a referral or a letter of recommendation. It doesn't have to be an alumni, but that letter of recommendation does have to be from a leader that can speak to your contributions in the community, to your track record as a leader. And so the letter of rec is optional, but it is encouraged because it is a competitive process, right? So when it does come down with the reviewing committee, I think they're going to want to look for those references that can complement your application. What else?
If I can add, Stephanie, we're kind of like the UC over here. UC system, the applications are reviewed in the context of the communities that you're applying from. So in the application, you'll be asked to select a region in California that is closest to where you live. So if you're in LA County, you'd select the greater Los Angeles region, and your application is only evaluated in comparison to other applications from the LA County area, and it's evaluated by LA County or by greater LA alumni. The reason why we do it that way is because we do ask that you have some community involvement. And so the women who are part of the evaluation committee have a good understanding of that community, and can, just more accurately assess your application, as opposed to just doing something across the board where folks who are not familiar with your community or the needs of your community or your contributions in that community might not give you a fair assessment. So I did want to mention that.
Yeah, thank you for that. Then we often get lots of questions on, what are we looking for in applicants? There isn't an age requirement. I think we also pride ourselves in that this is a very age diverse group, not just from different sectors in California, different parts of the state, but also different ages. I think we all bring something special to the table, and the experience is very valuable. So something that we do look for is a minimum of 5 years of professional experience, professional or leadership experience in your field. Again, this is where those letters of recs or references really come in handy. We want to see, again, to Diana's point, involvement, that civic engagement is important to you, or that eagerness to want to increase your civic engagement or participation in your community. So, if you're ready to sort of step up and put yourself out there as a leader in your community, and you have a little bit of history to back that, I think HLI is absolutely for you. If you're already in a position of leadership in an elected office or in a board or commission, and you wanting to expand those skills, I would absolutely say that the Hope Leadership Institute is for you. Our goal is to increase our advocacy skills, so that when we find ourselves in spaces of decision-making power, we can show up representing all communities, right? And so that's really what we have in mind when we're looking at a lot of these applications. I think we'll stop there. There is $100 fee in the application, so that is also something be sure that this is what you want to do, because there is that commitment of $100 of a processing fee that you can pay directly online. So also let us know if there's concerns around that. But that is everything around the application that I wanted to share. The application will lock at midnight on the 13th. So this is a Sunday. We wanted to give you that additional weekend to complete it. But that will lock at midnight. And so letters of rec, you can upload them directly. And I would recommend that those stay directly, because if they are mailed in or emailed in, could easily get lost. So I encourage everyone to keep their letters of rec and notes directly on the application. So I think that covers most of the program and the application process. I do want to stop for questions, and so feel free to unmute yourself. There is a lot of us in here, so if you can also, there's a couple people speaking, maybe just raise your hand and I'll go ahead and call on you. I'm going to stop the share. Any questions? Jeanette.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for this great informational session. Are you able to share about how many people apply and how many people get accepted into the program?
Yeah, absolutely. So it all depends. It is a competitive process. We get anywhere from, I want to say 80 to over 100 applications on a year-to-year basis. Our cohorts have varied. Last year, we did have one cohort of 40 women. And so it was about half of the people that applied got in. But because this year we're having those two cohorts, we're hoping that also expands access, right? And so that we're looking to train 50 women between the in-person and the traditional. I'm sorry, the in-person and the hybrid model.
But traditionally, Janet, if you don't apply next year, traditionally we get 80 to 100 applications. We only admit 25 people. I want to address one of the questions that's in the chat, which is, does the cohort get to weigh in on the policy priorities for Latina Action Day? The answer to that is no, unfortunately. But Hope's policy review is actually pretty extensive. We have a policy director, and she works with some interns to start drafting policy if we're carrying legislation that year, or works in coalitions with different coalitions that we're in to support different policy priorities, and then that is vetted by a policy committee on our board, and then it goes to our full board for review. Our board of directors sets the policy agenda for the organization.
And if I can add to that, on the piece that you do get to weigh in on, I failed to mention that during the 5 sessions, whether you're in person or hybrid, there is a capstone component to the work. So there is, outside of session, there is some commitment outside on your own time to be working with your team. Often the times this is regionally, where we're asking you to tap into the knowledge and the skills that you're gaining from each session, and prepare policy briefs. And so each year it's different. During the thick of the pandemic, we were having our cohort do research on the impact that COVID was having in their communities, on the lenses of educational equity and healthcare access, right? And so from there, they were able to piece together and provide recommendations to their 3 branches of government in their community on those issues. So there is definitely flexibility for the cohort to shape policy in your capstone. And this is ongoing work throughout the process. Do we anticipate there will be a hybrid version for future cohorts, or just 2023? TBD. Yeah, so I don't think we can give for certain that answer. This is a bit of a pilot that we are trying, knowing that it's worked very well when we were completely online. But we can't say for certainty what's going to be happening in 2024. Annabelle.
Hi, hello, thank you. Can you hear me? Sorry, sometimes I have trouble with my mic.
We can hear you. Mhm.
The question I have is, how do you measure experience? Because I know you said that's a 5-year limit. So for example, like I'm in the legal field, but I was a law student. I graduated in 2019, so I've been an attorney for 3 years, but I've been working in the legal field since like 2012. So I'm just wondering, how do you measure that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, you know, your own narrative that you choose to share in the application. I would consider that whenever you're finished, you know, maybe college and you started positioning yourself as a leader. There's some people that maybe have graduated from college recently, but they did a lot of leadership positions while in college, right? So I think that would also count. So I mean, I think that it doesn't have to be in your current role. It's just overall a minimum of 5 years of either professional experience or leadership experience. I hope that helps.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I do see another one. How many individuals are selected for county and region? We do try to make this equitable as far as representation from each part of the state. It depends on how many applicants we receive. And how much room we have, right? But we're always going to look to have parity between Northern California, Southern California, the Central Valley. And so you can expect at least 4 to 5 people per region. Do we specify in the application whether we're applying for the hybrid or in-person program? Yes. Yeah, you would provide your preference in the application.
Or if you're open to other, then we do ask for you to give us your first preference. You are able to reapply if you are not accepted this year. And I think someone asked, yeah, so you can reapply. Someone else asked if we can shed light on the qualifications. So I will share that putting together a cohort is the hardest part of doing this program. It's putting together a group of people based on paper, based on select interviews. We do interview some people if we feel like we need a little bit more from their application. And then it's like, you know, you're creating this like magic with a group, right? Because you want the group to mesh well. You want to create diversity in thought, in region, in sector, in experience, right? You know, some people are more experienced than others. Some people know about this, others are pretty green in this area. And so it's difficult to say what'll make your application stand out. I think if you have a connection to the work that you're doing, if you have a well-rounded application, right? You have your career leadership, but you also are doing stuff outside of that, right? Are you contributing to your community in a different way? That always helps your application stand out in a positive way. And that your application is well written. I will say we get, you know, what we mentioned, we get 80 to 100 applications. Some of those aren't the best, and we do filter those out, right? If it's a poorly written application, we're not going to bother reading it or putting it forward for further consideration. So just, yeah, it's hard to say in terms of qualification. We're looking for well-rounded leaders, right? That you have some, you know, established career expertise, but that you're contributing your community. If your career is not directly related to community work, that you're also doing something in that space, or at least an eagerness to contribute. But we assess every individual application, so it's hard to say, oh my God, this one over this person. That creating the magic of a cohort is quite difficult.
Okay, I'm seeing 3 questions on the chat. What does a typical agenda look like? And then cost and letters of rec. So I'll go in that order around the agenda. The in-person is, as I mentioned, it's intense. They're intense days. Really fun days, but very long days. So we be prepared to start in the morning. You know, sometimes if it's a travel day, for example, in DC, if you're because of traveling, we'll usually start the evening of before the first full day, right? So maybe at 7 p.m. start time, so that we are prepared to start at 9 a.m., maybe 8 a.m. the next day, and it'll go through the end of the day. So it's usually working meetings, perhaps a working lunch, a lot of site visits, and then we'll end. We often have lots of the in-person ones, either a dinner with a panel, a lot of networking opportunity, but there are long days. For people virtually, we'll usually do, we'll always respect your lunchtime because we'll be in person in the virtual screen. So we'll provide those breaks for stretching and for lunch and whatnot. But there are long days. So if you were doing school during the pandemic, kind of expect that. A lot of seminars where speakers are coming, sharing their screen. We stop for questions. Maybe we'll have a panel. So it's very similar. They're just shorter days, but it does require that mental power to just be focused and paying attention. I hope that's helpful. Expect long days, great days. On this slide that we're assuming cost to travel, but on the website it says Bakersfield. So transportation, everyone's responsible for transportation. For some sessions, if you have to travel to Sacramento, depending when you're at, everyone's responsible for that travel cost. For lodging, Hope will support for the in-person session, the traditional cohort. We will be paying for lodging in shared rooms. And so if someone is very specific that they do not want to share a room, then that cost will be picked up by you. In Bakersfield, because this is our longest session, it's 4 days. The participants are paying for that hotel themselves. It's usually the session where those travel costs are lowest. And so we do always ask that the participants pay for that. A lot of people split rooms, right? So if you're in a shared room, then you are splitting the cost with another participant. And so that's the piece on the website that you are seeing. But transportation, whether it's hybrid or traditional, everyone's responsible for that.
And for the hybrid, we don't cover the cost for lodging for the 2 sessions. We did that to be fair. So I think we estimate the travel cost to be about, I want to say 2,500 to 3,000, and it's the same if you do the hybrid or if you do the in-person. And so we wanted just to make sure that we were creating, kind of equity in both of those options. Again, there are some limited travel scholarships, but again, that's very limited, and I think it's specific to like income level. So if you have questions about that, you can reach out to Stephanie.
Yeah. Very quickly, I'll touch on the letters of reference. Yes, you are correct that professional references, they don't have to be from alumni. A letter of reference can be from anyone that knows you and can speak to your leadership, right? But there's also a section that says, do you know any alumni? Do you have references from alumni? So it's a twofold. Alumni, where you would put their name and their class. If those letters of reference are from alumni, great, but they could also be from your employer or someone that you serve on a board. So there's flexibility there. Can you submit more than 2 letters? There's only room for 2 letters. If there are more, they could be emailed, but you you only have room on the application for 2 letters.
Sarah, your question about whether you could do school and this, I think it'll depend on if you're just doing school or if you're doing, like you're working, you're doing school and this, and I think that's not doable. That'd be very, I think that'd be very difficult. I think happy to talk to you about what that would mean for you if you are looking to apply, and I'll drop my email in the chat. I think, yeah, let's just, maybe we can talk offline.
Anyone else? I'm happy to stick around a little longer to answer. I expected to stay at the hotel even if you live in the area. Yes, so that's a piece that has come up before, because so much of the unwritten pieces in the objectives is fellowship development. So much bonding happens in the hotel. Lisana can speak to that, and Natalie, she's still here. There's a lot of fellowship that happens as part of it, and we want you to be as immersed in the HLI experience as possible. That we do require that everyone stays at the same hotel. Again, our days will run late and we'll start early in the morning. And so when we are all in the same place, it just makes for a better experience for everyone. We're not having to wait for people and whatnot. So we do require it, but we do truly believe it's for the betterment of your experience, because you'll get to be immersed in with the cohort, not having to, go home and continue working or, family duties. So we're hoping that you can really commit to being with the group for those 2 to 3 days that we're with each other. Ladies, anyone else? Any more questions? Oh, Janet.
Sorry, I wasn't sure if to raise my hand.
I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Go ahead.
Just going back to something that Diana mentioned, where you put in your preference to the in-person or hybrid, does that mean if the in-person gets full, you might get selected for the hybrid, or vice versa? How does that work?
So if you select that you're open to either, then we will make a determination about where you would fit in best. And then we would notify you, and then you could accept or kind of decline. Does that make sense?
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, there's no more questions. I just wanted to thank you all for taking time out of your day to be with us. I hope that this was helpful to you. If there's any specific questions that pertain just to you, again, feel free to email us. But we hope to see all of your applications, and we are excited to onboard a new cohort. And I hope that it's a lot of you that are in the virtual space today. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Bye,
Hi,
Stephanie.
Lisana. Good to see you.
Bye.
Good to see you. Bye.
Bye.
I don't think Natalie's here.
Oh, Natalie left already. Yeah. Oh yeah, Annabelle, I'm here. Oh,
Sorry if you answered that question. I just didn't
no.
catch it.
Yeah, that's a good question. So everyone should know about their participation by the holidays. So by January, the first week of January, we will ask for that commitment, that signed MOU that says, yes, I'm doing it if you were selected. But you should find out whether you were selected before the holidays. So around December 20th, before the 25th for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone.